Welcome to the Holistic Health Call, providing practical and science-based solutions to improving your health and feeling your best. The following discussion is for educational purposes only and is not intended to diagnose or treat any disease. Please do not apply any of this information without first speaking with your doctor. To stay up to date on the latest topics as well as all of our prior episodes, please make sure to hit the subscribe button and share these videos with family and friends. Now, let's head to the show.
Hi everyone, I'm Dr. Edward Catalano, a functional and holistic practitioner here in Little Falls, New Jersey. I'm here with my partner and friend Ray Vasquez, personal trainer, health coach. Last time we made a video about inflammation, calming the flame. We discussed really what inflammation was and how it affects chronic illness. But I wanted to follow that up with, what do you do about it, dietary-wise, supplement-wise? Because there's so much misinformation out there, right?
Oh, without a doubt, yeah. And inflammation is definitely a big topic these days. So what are some foods that cause inflammation?
So really, a lot it has to do, unfortunately, with the standard American diet. And, we term it SAD, right?
Yeah.
SAD, because it's the standard American diet. But most of the foods that cause inflammation in our bodies are processed foods. So obviously our fast foods, things that come out of a box that have, ingredients in them that, are preservatives, and most of the time they have what we call bad oils or seed oils. And those are the oils that are mostly genetically modified. They're GMOs, so that's, canola oils, the corn oils, the other vegetable oils, even lards they use sometimes in fast foods. And these things become hydrogenated. That means that they become full of carbons and oxygens, and they get rancid, and they just cause inflammation in our bodies. A lot of times dyes and chemicals added to foods that are artificial, right? We have red dyes and blue dyes, different color foods. They cause inflammatory patterns in our body. And just the processed meats. So a lot of the deli meats that aren't done correctly, that aren't natural, have sulfites and nitrates in them, and they're inflammatory foods. They just cause havoc in our gut. They activate our immune system, and when we overeat them and eat them more often than we should, our body gets into this chronic inflammatory state that we talked about last time. The difference between acute inflammation and chronic inflammation. And that's really the root cause of most of our chronic illnesses.
Yeah, it's unfortunate, what's allowed in our food industry, like you mentioned, GMOs and all the bad oils. And if you look at anything nowadays in the store, you got to go through it with a fine-tooth comb to find something that's healthy for you.
Right.
So unless you're eating and even with fruits and vegetables, you got to be careful with that or whatever, because if it's not organic or grass-fed or something like that, you could be eating something that's hurting you even though it's supposed to be healthy. So it makes it hard. It makes it so hard to be healthy and not to have some kind of inflammation in this country.
Yeah, and then you got to, like you said, with the meats, you got to think of what the animal that we're eating is eating.
Right.
So we could try and stay away from inflammatory foods, but if we're eating beef that's, in these cattle ranches that, aren't treating the animals correctly, they're feeding them inflammatory foods because that gets them fatter and thicker and the meat tender. So then you're eating it, so you think you're eating a nice piece of beef, but you're eating an inflammation piece of beef. So, beef that's grass-fed and grass-finished, and the animals are treated properly. Same with chickens, pasture-raised chickens.
Yes.
That's part of it. And the other thing really is, the conventional medical system in our country does not talk about diet or nutrition at all. Most, you can get through medical school with, maybe 3 hours of nutrition.
Right.
And, the example of that is in the hospital. Look at what's in the hospital lobbies, fast food restaurants. You get out of a major surgery, and what do they give you? Like ginger ale and crackers, right?
Right.
I mean, we don't have anything better or nutritious than that to give someone after a major surgery.
Right.
So they don't have that understanding. Sugar, you talk about inflammation, I talked about oils and things, but you know, the sugar consumption, especially at the high fructose corn syrup,
Oh, yes.
highly inflammatory, but sugar in general, and you know, we just live in that. So,
And so addicting too.
so addicting.
Yeah. So tell me, on the opposite spectrum, what are some good things that can help, you know, good foods that would help with inflammation?
Yeah, so most of them are, you know, are fruits and vegetables. And they're broken up into different categories. So, you know, I made some lists. So we call, you know, these polyphenols, flavonoids, flavanols, all these different types of categories. And most of them have a real benefit effect on our health and our anti-inflammatories. So, you know, some of the flavanols, onions, kale, spinach, red grapes and wine, berries, huge with the polyphenols, blueberries, blackberries, even strawberries,
Right.
Tomatoes with lycopene and a couple of other polyphenols in them, all the lettuces. So, you know, then there's a compound that's in a lot of foods called quercetin. You could get that in a supplement, and I do give that supplement to some people who need it. But foods that are high in quercetin are things like watercress, cilantro, radicchio, asparagus, onions, peppers, apples, berries again, even sweet potatoes are high in quercetin, a real beneficial food. Quercetin also is really helpful in seasonal allergies. It calms this histamine response, so something that's really good to do that. So, supplement-wise, you know, we have the master antioxidant is vitamin C. Has to be in the right form though. And we call that L-ascorbate, which, you know, most of the synthetic vitamin C's that we get don't operate the same as the vitamin C's we get in food. We do have quercetin supplements, omega-3 fish oils, the EPA and DHA, along with some plant-based omega-3s, but those are, you know, extremely anti-inflammatory. And then the spices like turmeric and curcumin. We can eat them, you know, when you make food, or again in supplemental form.
Right.
So that's really, you know, that's really it. So it you know, I have listed here flavanols, isoflavones, but the list pretty much, you know, continues with, again, onions and kale. They're in all the same categories, and they just contain all these really good nutrients. The berries are the best. Broccoli, cauliflower, Brussels sprouts, those are the cruciferous vegetables, high in sulfur, which again we need for detoxification. Cacao or cocoa,
Yeah.
again in a pure form without a lot of sugar in it.
Right.
Again, high in polyphenols, really good for immune function and anti-inflammatories. A lot of cultures use that, you know, over the years. So, you know, we have these we have these things called blue zones, right? And there's 5 blue zones in the world. And these are areas of the world where people live to be 80s, 90s, and 100s, but still vital, still strong, less disease, less dementia. And, you know, so people have studied these blue zones, and there's books written about it, documentaries, and you want to see, well, what is it about these zones that, you know, people can live so long? And there's cultural things, you know, a lot of times the families live together, the older people are taking care of the younger people, they still have some work to do, so they're still vital and important in society. But when you talk about foods, most of them are in some type of Mediterranean style diet. There's one area in Sardinia and Sicily that's a blue zone, one area in Greece, there's one in Japan, in Okinawa, Japan, one in Peru, and then one in Loma Linda, California. And again, the common foods are more good oils, obviously olive oils for the Greeks and the Italians.
Right.
Tomatoes for the Greeks and Italians. Again, lycopenes. A lot of fruits and vegetables in their diets mostly.
Fish.
And one thing that's common through all the 5 zones is actually beans and legumes.
Okay.
So, and I know people have sometimes a hard time digesting beans and legumes, but done correctly and prepared correctly, the best way to cook beans and lentils are pressure cooking them. It reduces their gas and the lectins in the beans. There's a brand called Eden's, like the Garden of Eden, Eden's beans. You can get them in the supermarket. They're pre-pressure cooked.
Oh.
And I find with my patients that they can digest them better. But they feed the good gut bacteria in our body, and they reduce the inflammatory patterns. So those are just some guidelines. It all starts with what we eat, drink, what we think and do. That's 90% of our health, and we got to get back to a whole food diet. We got to get rid of the processed foods and sugars, and we'll be much better off and reduce our risks of chronic infections and illnesses, reduce dementia in our society, and just stay vital for as long as we can.
Definitely, and keep limit how much you eat out, because anytime you eat out, you're getting so much food with so much sodium and so many preservatives and things.
Yeah, I mean, you can make good choices when you go out,
right?
And you can make bad choices.
Yes.
So that's always the case.
Yeah.
But the best way is, at least most of the time, start learning to cook.
Definitely.
Meal prep if you don't have time during the week.
Yes. That's
take
big.
a weekend day, make some meals, freeze them or put them in the fridge.
Right.
This way you always have something. I know in my family, my wife likes to cook, thankfully, and we cook healthy.
Same here.
And she always makes a little bit more for dinner, and I have my Pyrex dish, and after dinner I put what we ate that night in there, and that's my lunch for the next day. So I know at least for lunch, I have something good, and I bring it, and most of the time we're going to have a nice dinner. So at least those 2 meals are really good. Because even for me, as much as I know about it, if I have to run out and get something, the choices aren't that great.
No, definitely.
So I like to cook. I like to bring things with me, and I think people should get used to bringing their lunch again. Or a lot of people are home now, so it's not hard to do.
Yeah.
But that's the key. We need to improve our eating, get proper sleep, get some exercise, reduce stress, and that's really the key to healthy longevity.
Definitely. Yeah, and I agree with. I pack my lunch too. I'll make some protein shakes that I have during the day, and then things like that. You got to be prepared, because if you're constantly forced to eat out or whatever, it's hard to eat good things.
So it takes a little effort, but it's well worth it. So.
Definitely.
Thank you for watching and listening to the Holistic House Call. Our goal of these videos is to keep it short and sweet and give you one piece of information that you can use in your daily lifestyle.